encouraged me to do the Magic Cup. And he was like, mate, you got to do this competition. It's really easy. There's a lot of money on the line. You're still a student, so in your medicine, so you'll have like a good area to solve, using tech. And so I was like, fine, okay, I'll consider it. And I think I was sitting in a pediatric public health lecture by, what's his name, Trevor Duke, I think. Anyway, he was one of the lecturers at that time, and he was talking about childhood pneumonia being one of the single largest killers of children under the age of 5. I think it's gone down now. It might not be the single biggest killer, but it was when I was doing medicine. And it was so happened at a time that I also knew of Professor Jim Black, who was a professor of public health at School of Public Health, who also had a great interest in mHealth and informatics and how you could use mobile devices and mobile technology to help clinicians or health workers in the developing world. So, having heard about this lecture, I was like, okay, great, now I have a problem to try and solve. So I went to Jim and I said, Jim, how about if we try to solve this problem of childhood pneumonia? He said, yeah, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to why this childhood pneumonia problem is such a big deal is misdiagnosis or poor or lack of diagnosis, right? Because we all know that pneumonia is really easily treatable, right? If you see the signs and you give the antibiotics, they're usually done quite well. It's when it's too late to give the antibiotics. And one of the problems, if you look at the WHO handbook, was breath counting. And we still do this as well. Like visual inspection of respiratory rate is really poorly done and also poorly replicated with intra-observer reliability. So we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could come up with something that had a proper objective measure of respiratory rate without the need of a pulse oximeter and all these fancy gizmos? And we said, well, we listen to breath with a stethoscope. Why don't we come up with a digital stethoscope so we could record it and write some software to count the number of breaths? So essentially that's where the whole idea came about. And at that time, Microsoft had also came up with their Azure product, and we're trying to be like savvy entrepreneurs. We're like, if we throw a cloud component in, I'm sure we'll get more brownie points and do well. And that was when we tackled this whole idea of the cloud, where we said, since we're storing these or recording these sounds and storing them on the device, why don't we send them up to the cloud so they can be synced? And once we get them synced, we can analyze them. And this is really interesting as well when I talk about analyze, because this was, I think, in 2014, and AI and machine learning hadn't been a thing yet. But I was exposed to machine learning when I was doing my informatics at Johns Hopkins. So I had learned about machine learning back all the way in 2009, 2010. And I knew it was going to be big. I knew that one day it would be a huge part of technology. And today all we hear about is AI and machine learning. And so we said, well, we're going to store it in the cloud, and one day we'll do machine learning on the sounds and come up with an algorithm that can diagnose pneumonia from asthma, from all the other sounds. So I guess that's kind of like how it all added up to what we have today as a product offering.
And you went into internship by working on the idea on the side with Andrew and some other teammates as well.
Yes.
Was that hectic? How's that whole experience?
To be honest, I can't believe I actually did that, really. It was really stressful, come to think of it, and I wouldn't do it again. I probably don't have the energy to do that again, but it was, what I used to do was and this was really good when I was doing emergency as my rotation, because I was down in Warragul. I actually did 2 terms of emergency, but my first term was in Warragul. And what I had done, and this was when we needed to do most of the dev work, was I had stacked my days together. So I would work 4 or maybe even 10 days in a row, and I had 4 or 5 days off. But in the 4 or 5 days, I would come back to Melbourne, and I would go down to the Inspire 9 or York Butter Factory at these co-working spaces and work on hacking the code together with some of our earliest collaborators like Rob Skillington, who generously lent his time building the backend database. So that's how it all happened. So whatever time I had there, I was working as an intern. I had spent writing code, building software, building hardware prototypes.
So it's pretty much while some of the other interns spent annual leave and their time off taking road trips and flying overseas,
Yep.
you were going to the co-working spaces.
Yeah. Churning out code.
Hard.
That's tough.
Yep.
And how was your first meeting with Andrew, and how did that relationship blossom?
So it was actually before the Imagine Cup. I think I had gotten back from America from my AMS, and I was kind of, really hyped. I was like, oh, I need to do a hackathon, and I need to get my hands dirty building code. So I had done a lot of that, and I really wanted to stretch my legs out. So Rob Skillington and a couple of other friends, we entered into this hackathon that was being run in a co-working space called Inspire 9. And at the end of it, someone was like saying, hey, there's actually another medical student here. He helped organize this. You should meet him. And that's how I met Andrew. And I was like, there's another guy here who's interested in tech. I should keep this guy on my contact list. One day I might find him useful. You never know. So for all you medical students out there, just make sure you collect contact cards and keep them around and add people on LinkedIn, because you never know, one day they might be helpful. They may be collaborators, business partners, and so forth.
And then was it after your intern year that you decided to make the jump into full-time entrepreneurship?
Yeah. It was sometime at the end of the study. So when I was writing code, it was actually for a study that was actually undertaken in the Royal Children's Hospital. And one of our research nurses actually said, Han, I've had numerous inquiries from parents about this device. It was a really janky looking prototype with like wires strewn all over the place, but they were saying, how much does it cost and where do I buy this from? And it wasn't just from one source, it was from multiple different parents. And at that point, Andrew and I were like, hey, maybe there's something into this, right? And at that time, mHealth had just, mobile devices had taken off. Mobile health was a big thing. And so we said, maybe there is something in this. Let's find out. So I never really left medicine. It was put on hold, and Andrew left his job, and we decided to take a trip up to Silicon Valley. Actually, no, we took a trip up first to Texas, to Austin, because at that time in March there was South by Southwest, and that was where you would go to meet the who's who in tech. And so we were there in Silicon Valley, in South by Southwest. We met a really bunch of cool people. We went over to Silicon Valley, and then at that time we were really convinced about this. We came back to Australia. We decided that we were going to make a prototype, and that we would raise a small friends and family round of financing. So we did that, and went back again, and got some early investment. Came back, did a self-starter, like a Kickstarter, a self-starter kind of program, and then went back to the valley, did the whole song and dance through Sand Hill Road, which is a very famous windy road, hilly road in, I think, Menlo Park, or Palo Alto. No, Menlo Park, where all the venture capitalist firms like Kleiner Perkins, or Sequoia, or Lightspeed Ventures are at. And these guys are extremely well known, or legendary in the valley for having funded things like Apple or Facebook or Google. And so we were there, and we spoke to different people there, pitched our ideas, and we didn't hear anything back. It was always, oh, not really, but come back to us later on. We came back a little bit dejected, but one firm came back and said, we love what you're doing, can you come back up and do a pitch? And so we flew back up again, or Angie actually flew back up, did the pitch. They liked it so much, they shook on the deal, and that was Tencent, and that's how we raised our money. Our first big money.
And so we took that idea of the at-home stethoscope.
Yep.
We added a non-contact thermometer, also at-home non-contact thermometer to it. We sort of focused on these devices for a few years.
Yep.
And fast forwarding a little bit, you've come into the space of neurons and using neurons instead of silicon as transistors.
Yep.
So basically a completely new paradigm of computing
Yep.
processing. How do we go from at-home care to
Right.
neurons?
So, yeah, it's a bit of a funny leap. So, once we started to get data, we started out a data science division. And, having said that I had done machine learning, I knew that was going to be big. So, we invested very early on into machine learning and digital signal processing in order to come up with algorithms. Like we have, I would say, the most robust heart rate algorithm at the moment. It's so robust that researchers at the Women's Hospital, they use our device to get heart rate within the first minute of life because it's able to get it as accurately as an ECG, but without having to clean the skin and attach electrodes. We also had built like algorithms that could detect murmurs and determine what they were. But a lot of the problems is that they take a lot of time and effort and resources to get through the FDA, and so a lot of them have been in prototype stage. And we had built up this capability in AI, and it was, I think, last year that things started to go a bit south for us with the election of Trump as president, because, and I know a lot of people like to blame Trump and everything bad that happened, but what happened with Trump was that we had quite a few big deals that were about to go through with the VA and such, but when he got into power, his promise to remove Obamacare caused a lot of uncertainty in the health services space in the United States. So a lot of discretionary spending on services and devices like ours were frozen. And so that was very disconcerting for us. We thought maybe after he had removed Obamacare and put in Trump Care, that people were able to be more confident with spending and would I guess put through the orders and such that we needed. But he couldn't get rid of that, and so it's been this sort of standstill at the moment of where is the funding coming. Now with midterm elections coming up, nobody really quite knows exactly where the future is going to go. So my co-founder and I, Andrew, decided that we could be seeing this for the next potentially 8 years, and so we made the hard call of going, well, we have a lot of users out there who use our products. We have had stories of patients taking a device with them, and then a kid getting croup or asthma in like Aruba, and rather than going to a local GP, did a remote consult with a pediatrician back home in Florida, and such. And we have users in Saudi Arabia where it's connected to their telehealth systems there. So we didn't want to turn it off, but we said we will not be investing further resources in development into this, and we would then be pivoting all our all our efforts into research. And it was in AI that we saw this as a potential. Now, as an entrepreneur, what you really have to do is to find differentiators, what we call competitive advantage or defensive moats. And at that time, there was a lot of AI that was starting to happen, particularly in the areas of artificial neural networks, so convolutional neural nets, visual, computer vision, recursive neural networks recurrent neural networks for speech, for language modeling. But it was the call out by people like Demis Hassabis, who was the co-founder of DeepMind and had built an AI that could play Go with a background in neuroscience, and also people like Geoffrey Hinton, essentially the godfather of today's AI, who invented the artificial neural network, who also previously had done a bachelor's degree in psychology, for the AI community to re-engage neuroscience, to look at neuroscience as potential solutions for some of the problems that we face in the AI at the moment, such as what we call artificial generalized intelligence.